Hey everybody, and welcome to another Chairman of the Board ranking video. This is where I take a look at the last 5 new to me board games that I've played, and I rank and review them in order of preference. Now before I get started on today's 5 games, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor Keyenda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 5, I have Good Face, Bad Face. So this is a game I knew nothing about when I came in to play this one. I mean, it's a bluffing style game as you are trying to get, I believe it's 3, 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly, of these happy faces in front of you. But the game works in this system that's very reminiscent of a game called Skull, one of the best bluffing games out there, where on your turn you are creating a stack of cards and you're passing them on to the next player. Now they can either choose to reveal the top card, play it in front of them, or pass the deck straight on to the next player. When you flip the cards, if it's a good card, you get to keep it. If it's a bad card, you have to end your turn. And then basically, you know, in the future, good cards are going to cancel out the bad cards and so on. You're just making it more difficult for yourself if you are taking more bad cards. And of course, you're losing that race. Now, there's some kind of bluffing and double bluffing goes on here. You know, maybe you'll give a stack of positive cards to the next player and they'll think it's bad and move it straight back to you and you get to flip them all and so on. So very silly stuff. You know, the game play itself is wafer thin. It is more player driven, but there is a game here. You have to look for it, but I think it's there. And if you like games like Skull, this one's probably better for lower player counts. You know, we played it at 3 and actually worked quite well at 3. Whereas if you're playing Skull, you want, you know, at least 5 players really. So maybe this fits that little niche. Now, I think the game isn't as good as Skull, but it's not far off. It looks quite funny. It's super fast. Again, don't take it too seriously. Just have fun with it. But it's fine. You know, it's not the greatest game, but it's not bad either, and surprisingly better than I thought it would be. So that is Good Face, Bad Face at number 5. At number 4, I have Skip Bow. So this is an older shedding style game as you are trying to get through this huge stack of cards that is in front of you, as well as all the other players have their own little stacks. And basically what you're doing is that you are collecting cards and you are creating different discard piles. And what you're trying to do essentially is you're trying to again, shed these cards, but you can only play them in numerical order. So, you know, if your next card to shed is a 3, it's going to have to be played after a 2. But there are 4 different discard piles going on at the same time, not only for your personal selection, but also in the middle of the table. So there's a lots of freedom in terms of, you know, playing this card there and this card there and filling in the gaps so that you can shed your next card. The game starts off a bit slow, as you can't really shed anything, but as you do start to build up your own discard piles, and of course more options become available in the middle of the table, it's quite common that you have these super satisfying turns where you can end up getting rid of several cards from your stack in a single turn, and it actually just feels quite good when that happens as you are, you know, playing this card from your discard pile and then playing your next card and then playing this card to this discard pile and playing your next card and so on. So again, it does definitely build up to these big grandiose turns that feel super satisfying. Now, the gameplay is built on a foundation of luck, so be prepared that sometimes the cards are going to work for you, sometimes they're not. But you do have a minuscule bit of control with how you order your own discard piles. You know, do you want to create clean runs? Do you want to have kind of random numbers so you can dip and dive into all the different piles? And it works surprisingly well. Now, I think this game is pretty badly reviewed. I think maybe unjustly so. I think maybe it's a little bit too long and maybe its age is being held against it. But if I was to compare it to some modern card games, I don't think this is a mile off. It's not quite as strong as a lot of them, but it still holds up surprisingly well in my opinion. And it's another one of those games where you can kind of turn your brain off and just go through the motions, and hopefully it works out in your favour. But I wouldn't really write this one off. So that is Skip Bow at number 4. At number 3, I have Romi Rami. Now this is another small box card game that shares some features with a game like Rummy, as you are drafting cards from this communal pool. So you can either take all the cards from the same suit or all the cards of the same number. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to use those cards to fulfill these public contracts. But the suit of the card is quite important, because if you use the right suit against the right contract, then you'll get some bonus points. Additionally, the contracts themselves will contribute towards some endgame majorities. Now, I've pretty much just explained the whole game. Very simple, again, contract fulfillment, set collection or card collection, hand management style game. But it's got a good flow to it. Very simple stuff. You can teach this one to almost anybody, but it works and it does the job well. I've wanted to play this one for quite a long time, and I think it has this kind of timeless quality to it, where if you told me this game was designed 50 years ago, I would have believed you without any hesitation, because it does have this purist factor to it. So a nice game, super charming. Kind of would play this one anytime, anywhere. And it, again, does not outstay its welcome, only about 20 minutes to play. So yeah, simple stuff. Again, if you like simple card hand management games, then Romi Rami is a good option. So that is Romi Rami at number 3. At number 2, I have Captain Flip. So this is a super lightweight tile placement game as you are filling up your little ship full of these tiles. The twist on this game, as the name would suggest, is that when you draw a tile from a bag, you can either choose to keep it on the face it's on and without looking on the other side and placing it on your ship, or you can gamble and flip it over to the other side and be forced to place it on that side. Now, all of these tiles will score points in different ways. So for example, some might say, well, if this tile is on the top of a column, then it will score X amount of points at the end of the game. This tile will score X amount of points based on the other tiles that you've collected. If there's anybody in this row or column, all the things you'd come to maybe expect with games like this. But it does come with this extra wrinkle where if you take these gunner tokens or tiles, they're really good initially because they give you a nice injection of points. But if you ever go over a certain limit of 3 of them by the end of the game, then you will be automatically disqualified from winning. But there are ways around it through these monkey tokens that you can draw, which will flip over adjacent tiles, which will give you further rewards and hopefully stop you from losing out through those gunners. Super easy to play. I learned this in about 2 minutes, and you know what, it works surprisingly well, and I thoroughly enjoyed my plays of this one. I can see this one having legs, if they introduce more maps, if they introduce more tiles into the game, but keeping it balanced and simple enough so that anybody can play it. I think the sky is the limit for this game, and it never really ceases to amaze me the wide variety of games that Paolo Mori designed. He makes so many different types of games, and it's very hard to pinpoint which games are his, because again, he is such a chameleon when it comes to board game design. But this one, fantastic design. I think it's going to be a huge hit. I know it's already been successful, but I can see it prolonging that for a very long time and years to come down the line if this game continues to be supported. Nice, bright and vibrant artwork. There's enough going on to keep seasoned gamers entertained. Only takes around 20-30 minutes to play. And that visceral decision of, do I want to keep this tile? I don't want to flip it to the other side. It's just enough of a quirk to keep it interesting and differentiate itself through many other kind of gateway family weight style games. This is kind of as good as it gets when it comes to a family style game, in my opinion. So that is Captain Flip at number 2. And finally, at number 1, I have Ratjack. So wasn't entirely sure what to expect with this blackjack variant. And there are so many different games that have tried to tackle the traditional blackjack game. But I tend to like card games. I tend to like push your luck style games. And I'd heard some good things about this one. And I'm really glad I took the punt and picked this one up, because this is a really strong example of the genre. And it actually reminds me of one of my favourite games in my own collection called Capital Lux, or 2 Generations. But it's kind of like Capital Lux mixed with a game like Cabo. So it has a bit of a sillier edge to it, as if I was to compare it to a game like Capital Lux. So this one, you are trying to play cards in front of you to get to a total of 25 without going over, of course. But unlike traditional blackjack, each of these cards come with a unique power, and you're also able to play cards not only face up, which will contribute to your running total, but also cards face down, which will not do that, but you can use those face down cards later to kind of surprise your opponent by using their ability when you reveal them. Lots of kind of trickery going on with how these cards interact with each other. For example, you know, you can swap cards with other people, you can flip their cards face up and face down. You have a discard pile that you can take from, so you have a bit more clarity on what you're able to draw. You're rewarded by eliminating players from the round by forcing them to go over that 25-point mark. And you're also going to get points by being kind of the last man standing, or if the deck runs out and you've got the highest value without going over 25, then you will obviously win the round and get a point. And it's going to be a very simple race to get to 3 points, so it's super fast and you know, definitely resolves quickly. Now, I also love about this game is that you do have variable decks. So each game you are playing 2 out of a possible 4 decks. I believe it might be 5. I think it's 4. And you can use any combinations of those, which will slightly tweak the rules so that you have a different kind of a different seasoning on the game each time you play it. And what I like about it as well is that there is just the right amount of repetition on these cards, so that every card you draw isn't like, well, what does this do? There's no way of predicting what your opponents might do. It's kind of very easy to kind of get into the game and start to work out what the cards are capable of. The artwork style in the game and just the general look and quality of the cards is spectacular as well. And all in all, this is exactly the kind of card game that I want in my collection. It's clever, it's kind of silly, but there's a real cool game there. The interaction between the cards is cool. You can pull off some really great moves, as you can just flip over the right card at the right time, manipulate the board state, eliminate your opponents and just land right on that Ratjack figure. It's just kind of does what it should do perfectly, and I was thoroughly impressed with Ratjack. And definitely one of the surprises, well, definitely going to be a candidate for surprise of the year this early in January, and just a really pleasant surprise in general. So I'd highly recommend this one, despite it flying so far under the radar last year. So that is Ratjack at number 1. So there we have it. That concludes the video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.